There is the name and the thing. The name is a sound which designates and signifies the thing. The name is not a part of the thing or of the substance. It is an extraneous piece attached to the thing and outside of it. God, who is himself all fullness and the acme of all perfection, cannot grow and increase within, but his name may grow and increase by the blessing and praise we give to his external works. Which praise, since we cannot incorporate it in him, inasmuch as he can have no accession of good, we attribute to his name, which is the part outside him that is nearest him. That is why it is to God alone that glory and honor belong. And there is nothing so remote from reason as for us to go in quest of it for ourselves. For since we are indigent and necessitous within, since our essence is imperfect and continually in need of betterment, it is this betterment that we should work for. We are all hollow and empty. It is not with wind and sound that we have to fill ourselves. We need more solid substance to repair us. A starving man would be very foolish to try to provide himself with a fine garment rather than with a good meal. We must run to what is most urgent. As our ordinary prayers say, glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace toward men. We are in want of beauty, health, wisdom, virtue, and such like essential qualities. External ornaments will be sought after we have provided for the necessary things. Theology treats this subject amply and more pertinently, but I am hardly versed in it. Chrysippus and Diogenes were the first and the firmest exponents of the disdain for glory, and they said that of all pleasures there was none more dangerous or more to be avoided than what comes to us from the approbation of others. In truth, experience makes us aware of many harmful betrayals at its hands. There is nothing that poisons princes so much as flattery, and nothing by which the wicked more easily gain credit with them, nor is there any pandering so fitted and so common for corrupting the chastity of women as to feed and entertain them with their praises. The first enchantment that the sirens employ to beguile Ulysses is of this nature. Most praiseworthy Ulysses, turn to us here, here, greatest of heroes, whom the men of Greece hold dear. Those philosophers said that all the glory in the world did not deserve that a man of understanding should so much as stretch out his finger to acquire it. What's in the greatest glory, if it be but glory? I mean, for itself alone, for it often brings in its train many advantages for which it may become desirable. It gains us goodwill, makes us less exposed to insults and injuries from others, and the like. It was also one of the principal doctrines of Epicurus for that precept of his school, conceal your life, which forbids men to encumber themselves with public charges and negotiations, also necessarily presupposes our contempt for glory, which is an approbation that the world offers of actions that we place in evidence. He who orders us to conceal ourselves and to be concerned only with ourselves, and who does not want us to be known to others, is even farther from wanting us to be honored and glorified. So he advises Idomeneus not to regulate his actions at all by common opinion or reputation, except to avoid the other accidental disadvantages that men's contempt might bring. Those arguments are infinitely true, in my opinion, and reasonable. But we are, I know not how, double within ourselves, with the result that we do not believe what we believe, and we cannot rid ourselves of what we condemn. Let us see the last words of Epicurus, which he spoke as he was dying. They are great and worthy of such a philosopher, and yet they bear a certain mark of commending his name, and of that humor that in his precepts he had decried. Here is a letter that he dictated a little before his last gasp. While I was passing the happy and the very last day of my life, I was writing this, afflicted all the while with such pain in the bladder and intestines that nothing could be added to its greatness. But it was compensated by the pleasure which the remembrance of my discoveries and my teachings brought to my soul. Now do you, as the affection that you have had since childhood for me and for philosophy requires, embrace the protection of the children of Metrodorus. There is his letter, and what makes me infer that this pleasure which he says he feels in his soul over his discoveries somewhat concerns the reputation that he hoped to acquire from them after his death, is the provision in his will by which he wants his heirs, Amminomachus and Timocrates, to defray such costs as Hermachus should decree for the celebration of his birthday every January, and also the expenditures that should be made on the 20th day of each month for the entertainment of his intimate philosopher friends who should assemble in honor of the memory of himself and Metrodorus. Carneades was the protagonist of the opposite opinion, and maintained that glory was desirable for itself, just as we embrace our posterity for itself, though we have no knowledge or enjoyment of it. This opinion has not failed to be more commonly followed, as those are apt to be which most suit our inclinations. Aristotle gives glory the first rank among external goods. Avoid as two vicious extremes, in moderation both in seeking it and in fleeing it. I believe that if we had the books that Cicero had written on this subject, he would tell us some good ones, for that man was so frenzied with this passion that if he had dared, he would, I believe, have readily fallen into the excessive view into which others fall, that virtue itself was desirable only for the honor that always attended it. There is little difference twixt buried idleness and hidden virtue, which is an opinion so false that I am vexed that it could ever have entered the head of a man who had the honor of bearing the name of philosopher. It's by Horace. If that were true, we should be virtuous only in public, and there would be no point in keeping under rule and order the operations of the soul, where lies the true seat of virtue, except in so far as they should come to the knowledge of others. Waste his time checking others during such a melee, is not very busy in it himself, and produces against himself the testimony he gives of his companion's behavior. True and wise greatness of soul judges goodness, which our nature mainly seeks, to live in deeds, not in fame. Cicero. All the glory that I aspire to in my life is to have lived it tranquilly, not according to Metrodorus or Cecilius or Aristippus, but according to me, since philosophy has not been able to find a way to tranquility that is suitable to all, let everyone seek it individually. To what but to fortune do Caesar and Alexander owe the infinite greatness of their renown? How many men has it extinguished at the beginning of their career, of whom we have no knowledge, who brought their work the same courage as theirs, if the misfortune of their fate had not stopped them short at the birth of their enterprises? Through so many and such extreme dangers, I do not remember having read that Caesar was ever wounded. 1,000 have died from lesser perils than the least of those he passed through. An infinity of fine actions must be lost without a witness before one appears to advantage. A man is not always at the top of a breach or at the head of an army in sight of his general. As on a stage, he is taken by surprise between the hedge and the ditch. He must tempt fortune against a hen roost. He must root out 4 paltry musketeers from a barn. He must go out alone from his company and do a job alone as the need presents itself. And if you watch carefully, you will find by experience that the least brilliant occasions happen to be the most dangerous, and that in the wars that have taken place in our times, more good men have been lost on trivial and unimportant occasions and in fighting over some shack than in worthy and honorable places. Whoever thinks his death ill employed, unless it is on some signal occasion, instead of casting lustre on his death, is likely to obscure his life, meanwhile allowing many just occasions for hazarding himself to escape him. And all the just ones are illustrious enough, since each man's conscience trumpets them sufficiently to himself. Our glory is the testimony of our conscience. Whoever is a good man only because people will know it, and because they will esteem him better for it after knowing it. Whoever will do well only on condition that his virtue will come to the knowledge of men. That man is not one from whom one can derive much service. Orlando the remaining winter spent, I think, in doing deeds deserving fame, but they've been hid since then to such extent that if I tell them not, I'm not to blame. Wherever was Orlando more intent a noble deed to do than to proclaim? Nor ever would his exploits have been told, save when some witness was there to behold. We must go to war out of duty, and expect this reward, which cannot fail for all noble actions, however hidden they be, and even for virtuous thoughts, the contentment that a well-regulated conscience receives in itself from well-doing. We must be valiant for ourselves and for the advantage we derive from having our courage firmly grounded and secure against the assaults of fortune. Virtue ignores the voice of the profane, and brightly shines with honors without stain, nor takes nor lays the faces down for a plebeian cheer or frown. Fasces. It is not for show that our soul must play its part. It is at home within us, where no eyes penetrate but our own. There it protects us from the fear of death and of pain, and even of shame. There it makes us secure against the loss of our children, of our friends, and of our fortunes. And when the opportunity presents itself, it also leads us on to the hazards of war, not for any profit, but for the beauty of merit itself. Cicero. This prophet is much greater and more worthy of being coveted and hoped for than honor and glory, which is nothing but a favorable judgment that people make of us. We have to pick a dozen men out of a whole nation to pass judgment about an acre of land, and the judgment of our inclinations and our actions, the most difficult and important matter there is. We refer to the voice of the common people and of the mob, the mother of ignorance, injustice, and inconsistency. Is it reasonable to make the life of a sage depend on the judgment of fools? Can anything be more foolish than to think that those whom we despise individually amount to something collectively? Cicero. Whoever aims to please them has never done. This is a shapeless and elusive target. Nothing so unaccountable as the mind of the multitude. Livy. Demetrius used to say comically about the voice of the people that he set no more store by that which issued from above than by that which issued from below. This man goes still further. My opinion is this, that though a thing is not shameful in itself, still it is not free from shame when it is praised by the multitude. Cicero. No art, no suppleness of mind could guide our steps in following so erratic and unregulated a guide, and that windy confusion of rumors, reports, and popular opinions that push us about, no worthwhile road can be charted. Let us not set ourselves a goal so fluctuating and wavering. Let us steadfastly follow reason. Let public approbation follow us there, if it will, and since it depends entirely on fortune, we have no reason to expect it rather by any other way than by that one. Even if I should not follow the straight road because of its straightness, I would follow it because I have found by experience that when all is said and done, it is generally the happiest and the most useful. Providence has given this gift to man, that the honorable is the most profitable. The ancient mariners spoke thus to Neptune in a great tempest: O God, you may save me if you will, you may destroy me if you will, but I shall still hold my rudder straight. I have seen in my time 1,000 supple, two-faced, equivocating men who no one doubted were more worldly wise than I, ruin themselves where I saved myself. I laughed to see how wiles could fail. Emilius Paulus, setting out on his glorious expedition into Macedonia, warned the people of Rome above all to restrain their tongues concerning his actions during his absence. How great a disturber in great affairs is complete liberty of judgment, inasmuch as not everyone has the firmness of Fabius in the face of universal, hostile, and abusive clamor. He preferred to let his authority be dismembered by the vain fancies of men, rather than earn a favorable reputation and popular approval by performing his charge less well. There is I know not what natural sweetness in hearing oneself praised, but we make much too much of it. I fear not praise, no heart of horn have I, but that the test of worth is in your cry, bravo, well done, this I deny. Perseus. I do not care so much what I am to others as I care what I am to myself. I want to be rich by myself, not by borrowing. Strangers see only the results in outward appearances. Any man can put on a good face outside, while full of fever and fright within. They do not see my heart, they see only my countenance. People are right to cry the hypocrisy that is found in war, for what is easier for a practical man than to dodge the dangers and play tough when his heart is full of flabbiness? There are so many ways to avoid occasions for risking our individual lives, that we can deceive the world 1,000 times before engaging ourselves in a dangerous situation, and even then, finding ourselves stuck, we can perfectly well hide our game for the moment with a good face and a confident word, though our soul trembles within us. And if they had the use of the Platonic ring which made whoever wore it invisible if it was given a turn toward the palm of the hand, plenty of people would often hide when they ought to show themselves the most, and would repent of being placed in so honorable a spot where necessity makes them act assured. Who craves false honor and fears calumny, a liar and a hypocrite must be. That is why all these judgments that are founded on external appearances are marvelously uncertain and doubtful, and there is no witness so sure as each man to himself. On those occasions, how many servants do we not have associated in our glory? He who stands firm in an open trench, what does he do that 50 poor trench diggers have not done before him, who open the way for him and protect him with their bodies for 5 sous a day? Whatever giddy Rome decide, care not, nor struggle to correct or chide her faulty scales. Seek not thyself outside. Verses. We call it making our name great to spread and sow it in many mouths. We want it to be received there in good part and to profit by this growth. That is the most excusable element in this urge. But the excess of this malady goes so far that many seek to be talked about, no matter how. Trogus Pompeius says of Herostratus and Livy of Milius Capitolinus that they were more desirous of a big than a good reputation. This vice is common. We care more that people should speak of us than how they speak of us, and it is enough for us that our name should be current in men's mouths, no matter in what way it may be current. It seems that to be known is to have one's life and duration somehow in the keeping of others. As for me, I hold that I exist only in myself, and as for that other life of mine that lies in the knowledge of my friends, considering it naked and simply in itself, I know very well that I feel no fruit or enjoyment from it except by the vanity of a fanciful opinion. And when I am dead, I shall feel it even less, and moreover I shall lose completely the use of the real benefits which sometimes accidentally come after it. I shall no longer have any grip by which to seize reputation, nor by which it can touch me or reach me. Indeed, as for expecting my name to receive it, in the first place I have no name that is sufficiently my own. Of 2 that I have, one is common to my whole race, and indeed to others also. There is a family in Paris and one in Montpellier named Montaigne, another in Brittany and Saint-Jean called de la Montaigne. The change of a single syllable will tangle our threads so that I will share in their glory and they, perhaps, in my shame. And moreover, mine were formerly surnamed Quim, a name which still is attached to a well-known family in England. As for my other name, it belongs to whoever wants to take it. Thus I shall perhaps honor a porter instead of myself. And then, even if I had a particular mark for myself, what can it mark when I am no longer there? Can it designate and benefit nothingness? Now does his tomb weigh lighter on his bones. Posterity applauds one of these stones. Out of his ashes from his departed spirit do violets spring. But of this I have spoken elsewhere. Chapter of Names. Besides, in a whole battle in which 10,000 men are maimed or killed, there are not 15 that are talked about. It must be some very eminent greatness or some important consequence that fortune has attached to it that gives prominence to an individual action, not only a musketeer's but even a general's. For to kill a man or two or 10, to offer oneself courageously to death, that is indeed something for each one of us, for everything is at stake. But for the world these are things so ordinary, so many of them are seen every day, and so many of them are needed to produce one notable effect, that we cannot expect any particular commendation for them. An incident well known, trite, cheap, and taken from the midst of fortune's heap. Of so many myriads of valiant men who have died sword in hand in the last 1500 years in France, there are not 100 who have come to our knowledge. The memory not only of the leaders but of the battles and victories is buried. The fortunes of more than half the world, for lack of a record, do not stir from their place and vanish without duration. If I had in my possession all the unknown events, I should think I could very easily supplant those that are known in every kind of examples. Why, even of the Romans and the Greeks, amid so many writers and witnesses of so many rare and noble exploits, how few have come down as far as our time. The faint breath of its fame has scarce reached our ears. It will be a lot if 100 years from now people remember in a general way that in our time there were civil wars in France. Lacedaemonians sacrificed to the Muses on going into battle, so that their deeds might be well and worthily written down, judging that it was a divine uncommon favor that fine actions should find witnesses who could give them life and memory. Do we think that at every arquebus shot that touches us and at every risk that we run, there is promptly a clerk to record it, and beside that, 100 clerks may write it down, whose commentaries will last only 3 days and will come to no one's sight? We have not the 1,000th part of the writings of the ancients. It is fortune that gives them life, longer or shorter according to her favor. And it is permissible to wonder whether what we have is not the worse, since we have not seen the rest. People do not write histories about such petty things. A man must have been the leader in conquering an empire or a kingdom. He must have won 52 pitched battles, always with weaker numbers, like Caesar. 10,000 good comrades and many great captains died in his service, valiantly and courageously, whose names have endured only as long as their wives and children lived, whom dim rumor hides, even as those whom we see doing bravely 3 months or 3 years after they have been left on the field. You hear no more talk than if they had never been. Whoever will consider with just measure and proportion of what sort of men and what sort of deeds the glory is maintained in the memory of books will find that in our time there are very few actions and very few persons who can claim any right to such remembrance. How many valiant men we have seen to survive their own reputation, who have seen and suffered the extinction in their presence of the honor and glory most justly acquired in their early years. And for 3 years of this fanciful and imaginary life shall we go and lose our real and essential life and engage ourselves in a perpetual death? The sages set themselves a fairer and juster end for so important an enterprise. The reward of a good deed is to have done it. Seneca. The fruit of a service is the service itself. Cicero. It might perhaps be excusable for a painter or another artisan, or even for a rhetorician or grammarian, to toil to acquire a name by his works, but the actions of virtue are too noble in themselves to seek any other reward than from their own worth, and especially to seek it in the vanity of human judgments. However, if this false opinion is of service to the public in keeping men within their duty, if the people are thereby aroused to virtue, if princes are touched by seeing the world bless the memory of Trajan and abominate that of Nero, if it moves them to see the name of that great gallows bird, once so frightful and so dreaded, so freely cursed and reviled by the first schoolboy who deals with it. Let it grow boldly and let it be fostered among us as much as possible. And Plato, employing every means to make his citizens virtuous, advises them also not to despise the good repute and esteem of the people, and he says that it happens by some divine inspiration that even the wicked in words as well as in thought often know how to distinguish correctly good men from bad. This person and his teacher are marvelous and bold workmen at bringing in divine operations and revelations everywhere that human power fails. As the tragic poets have recourse to a god when they cannot unravel the end of their plot. Since men, because of their inadequacy, cannot be sufficiently paid with good money, let false be employed too. This means has been practiced by all lawgivers, and there is no polity in which there is not some admixture either of empty ceremony or of lying opinion to serve as a curb to keep the people in their duty. That is why most of them have their fabulous origins and beginnings enriched with supernatural mysteries. That is what has given credit to bastard religions and brought them into favor with men of understanding. And that is why Numa and Sartorius, to strengthen their people's belief, fed them with this stupid story, the one that the nymph Agaria, the other that his white hind brought him from the gods, all the decision that he adopted, and the authority that Numa gave to his laws by claiming the patronage of this goddess. Zoroaster, lawgiver of the Bactrians and the Persians, gave to his in the name of the god Oromazes, Trismegistus of the Egyptians, in the name of Mercury, Zamolux of the Scythians, in the name of Vesta, Charondas of the Colchidians, in the name of Saturn, Minos of the Candiots, in the name of Jupiter, Curius of the Lacedaemonians, in the name of Apollo, Draco and Solon of the Athenians, in the name of Minerva. Every polity has a god at its head. Falsely so the others, truly so the one that Moses set up for the people of Judea just out of Egypt. The religion of the Bedouins, as Sire de Joinville tells us, held among other things that the soul of any one of them who died for his prince departed into another body happier, handsomer, and stronger than the first, on account of which they risk their lives much more willingly. They rush on weapons, death they seem to crave, the life they will regain they scorn to save. Lucan. That is a very salutary belief. However empty it may be, every nation has many such examples of its own, but this subject would deserve a treatise in itself. To say one more word on my first topic, neither do I advise the ladies to call their duty honor. In common parlance, only that is called honorable which is glorious in popular opinion. Cicero. Their duty is the pith, their honor is only the rind. Nor do I advise them to give us this excuse for payment of their refusal, for I assume that their intentions, their desire, and their will, which are parts in which honor is not concerned, since nothing of them appears on the outside, are even better regulated than their acts. She who does not, because forbidden, really does. Ovid. The offense both toward God and in the conscience would be as great in the desiring as in the doing, and then these are actions of themselves hidden in secret. It would be very easy for women to conceal one of them from the knowledge of others, on which honor depends, if they had no other respect for their duty and for the affection they bear to chastity for its own sake. Any person of honor chooses rather to lose his honor than to lose his conscience.